Good evening. I want you to know that even though I may not be able to read live for you this evening, I'm recording this, I am nevertheless wearing aftershave in honour of the occasion, and there is a glass of beer very close to me on my left. Tonight I'm going to read to you a short extract from a little book called The Last Great Radio Show. This was the fourth book I self-published, and it's kind of close to my heart. As authors, we're always told that we should pretend not to have a favourite book that we've written. This is the favourite that I pretend not to have. The story is set in the Bright Futures retirement home for retired artists and performers, an odd place in a small, unregarded town in the east of England. And this extract features two of the inmates of the home in particular. James Rutherford Arkwright, commonly known as Arco, who is the former manager of the rock band Celestial Spirit and spent years giving every sign that all he cared about was the success of his band. And Chilton Molesworth, a former wrestler, who is widely believed to be a little bit simple. Chilton is 6'6" and bears a distinct resemblance to the actor Brian Blessed. A physical resemblance at any rate. The extract is important in the story because it shows for the first time that both men are perhaps not quite what they seem. I hope you enjoy it. Chilton Molesworth was reading Tolstoy. This was a matter of bemusement, or, according to temperament, amusement, to all concerned. It had begun some 18 months earlier when he'd suddenly appeared one day with an elderly copy of Anna Karenina, which he said had been given to him as a present. It was his way to form curious little attachments to particular items and to become obsessively possessive about them. Earlier examples included a broken radio that would play on the Radio Norfolk and Min's old spring-loaded umbrella. Nobody thought too much about it at that point. It did, however, raise comment when he was observed to be reading the book. The common view was that he wasn't, or rather that he was merely looking at the words. But it quickly became evident that this was not the case. He was reading, albeit painfully slowly, and with many pauses for reflection, such that he got through no more than about 5 pages a day. Arco, after close observation and a couple of conversations with him, formed the view that not only was Chilton reading the book, he was, in his own way, analysing it. One day, after about a year, Arco came upon Chilton in the lounge. Chilton was clutching the book to his chest and rocking slowly back and forth in his armchair, plainly in great distress. Arco paused. "Chilton?" The big man turned to him an expression of such bereavement that Arco was actually frightened. What's the matter, mate?" he asked, greatly concerned. "Finished it." Arco blinked, then realised. Oh, heck. He'd only gone and finished the bloody thing. Nobody had ever considered what might happen in that event. Arco thought fast. He put a hand on the poor man's shoulder and said to him very slowly and carefully, "Chilton, my mate, I will be back in 2.5 hours, precisely." He left the big man in the lounge, still rocking back and forth. He borrowed Moses Achilles' elderly red, green and yellow painted Renault van, drove the hour to Norwich, spent a hasty 10 minutes in Waterstones, and then drove the hour back, all at breakneck pace. By the time he arrived back at Bright Futures, a curious crowd had gathered in the lounge, all watching poor Chilton, and entirely failing to alleviate his distress. Arco pushed through the crowd and stopped before him. "There you go, my mate." He placed the Waterstones bag on Chilton's lap. Chilton paused in his rocking, looked down at the bag, then back up at Arco. "What?" he said. "Look," said Arco. Slowly, one-handed, the other keeping firm hold of Anna Karenina, Chilton fumbled in the bag and drew out its contents. His eyes widened as the crowd craned forward to look. It was a brand new, hardcover copy of War and Peace. Chilton looked at the book for a long moment, then back up at Arco. "Another?" Arco smiled. "Another. He wrote 2 great novels, Chiltern, not just one. Slowly, Chiltern put down Anna Karenina and picked up this new jewel. He opened it at the first page and read aloud, "Well, Prince, so Genoa and Lucca are now just family estates of the Buonapartes." His expression settled into one of such peace and contentment that there was actually a sigh from the little watching crowd. Chiltern looked briefly, very earnestly up at Arco. "Thank you, Arco," he said. "You're welcome." Then Chiltern settled down with his brand new book, and the rest of the group, by a kind of telepathic agreement, decamped in the general direction of the London Road alehouse. Gonzales bought Arco a pint. It seemed only fair, since his friend had just spent £12.99 on a book, plus a tenner in diesel for Moses's van. Moses himself settled down at their table, cradling a pint of Guinness. There was a decent pause, the customary and courteous silence, while each of the men took the first taste of their beer and savoured it, or, as it might be, recovered from the shock. Then Moses spoke. "I have one question, Arco man," he said. "What happens when he finishes War and Peace?" Arco smiled. "You know, Moses, I just had nearly 3 hours to think about that." "And?" "Marcel Proust." Arco took a long draught of his beer. 1.3 million words, he said with satisfaction. You can't go wrong with Proust. Thank you.